Thank you for having me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. The AES heads of state met in Bamako, Mali, a few days ago. How do you assess this meeting?
I think it's one of the most important meetings in the last 100 years as it regards African people. The first important meeting of our development happened in 1921 and 1920 in Madison Square Garden in New York City with Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, where they dealt with, this is 100 years ago, 105 years ago, they dealt with security, they dealt with economics and other issues pertaining to African people. And that was the first meeting since the slave trade that African people came together. The second series of important meetings came under the first official Pan-African state, and that was that of Ghana in 1958 when Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah called for the All African People's Conference. And now we have another one, right? With the meeting of the Sahel States Confederation. And it's one of the most important meetings, most definitely in the last 70 years. And so it fits right there. Everything that was done was perfect. And we pray that more great things come out of it.
During this meeting, we saw the inauguration of a television, and a bank to, let's say, to boost economy of the member countries.
And a 5,000-man army, right? And so what this means is what the Sahel is saying. And most importantly, now that our beloved young president, President Ibrahim Traore, has now taken over the leadership. And it's dwarfing the African Union. It's making the African Union look in the eyes of the youth that it hasn't done much. And even with the little that we're doing in the Sahel, it's more than all the other African countries are doing combined.
There are claims that the Western world, led by certain countries, is preparing a war against the AES. Is this true?
The war started 500 years ago when Europeans and Arabs came into Africa and they started taking us away. They invaded. If we look at one of the first major wars where we lost, it was the end of the Songhai Empire and the end of the 16th century. We lost that war against the Arabs. It was a combination of Arabs and Europeans, primarily the British and the Moroccan Arabs, and we lost. And that was the beginning of our decline. And we see all over the Sahel, all over West, Central Africa, Northern Africa, and East Africa, most of those African kingdoms in a 200 to 300 year period had all crumbled and succumbed to the whims of the West. And so the war didn't start then. This is a continuation of the war. However, this is the first time the West had to deal with African nations. Actually, the second time. The first time was when Ethiopia defeated the Italians in the Battle of Adwa in 1891. Now, for the second time, they have to deal with African states that have modern weaponry. This is something they're not used to. So yes, the war began some time ago, but now they have to deal with something that's much more significant than even the West has seen in the last 100 years.
How is this Western power carrying out this war strategy against the AES?
They are playing catch up because they didn't see this coming. This was not in their global lenses in history and security challenges 5 years ago. They never saw this coming. And this is how great God is. This is how great our ancestors are, our African ancestors, right? And so what we saw with what happened in Benin, where the young revolutionaries sought rightfully to return that country back to the people. And then we saw the French the Nigerians, at the request of the French, come in and assist the colonial slave masters in destroying an African state, right? And now we see recently the United States, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, is now bombing certain areas of the Sahel, northern Nigeria, the Sokoto Empire, the Sokoto state, which was a very powerful empire at one point of time. And we now see that this is all being done to get closer and to scare the Sahel states that have come together in a confederation. But they will not win. They cannot win this. If you remember, a few months ago, I came on this show and I dealt with the issue of how Libya was destroyed. They called Libya, scholars call Libya the dark winter.
Dark winter.
Right? And President Traoré has called what is happening here, what we have to prepare for here, the black winter. Right? But in my estimate, in my research on what happened in Libya, it was more of an inside job than what the NATO headed by the United States did. So what the challenges right now that we are facing in the Sahel is not so much of what our historical enemies and adversaries will do and can do. It's more about an inside job of our own leaders within.
Now, but how do you justify all this harassment against the AES?
The West cannot compete with China without getting the resources for free. What the West is looking to do is not necessarily to cause a regime change, although they would love that. What they want more importantly is destabilization. So that they can continue distracting the minerals for nothing. That's the only way that they can compete with China. That's the only way. They need and they want to make sure that the uranium that is in plenty of uranium that is in Niger is under their control, so that medical nuclear energy is not used, or if the AES decides that they're going to develop a nuclear bomb or whatever, they want to make sure that never happens. And most importantly, gold. They want to be able to go in and get the gold for free.
What can the AES do to better deal with this situation?
The AES must reform its domestic intelligence. It must be from the national police, airport police, the national security, ministries of defense. There has to be reform. Because when the West decides that they are going to come and invade, and it is coming, there's no doubt about it. As the president has said, we have to prepare for it. As I said earlier, when they come, they've already assessed the domestic intelligence to decide that they can come in and do something. And that's why I think the bombing in the Sahel is about. It's basically saying we already have enough intelligence and enough people within your own countries where we can come in right now. We can come in whenever we're ready to come in. And they're preparing for that now.
Now, what's your message to the entire world, including the NATO countries?
I don't have a message for the NATO countries, because NATO is going to do what it does. NATO is a snake. A snake only knows to attack in stealth form, quietly, get very close, and then strike. That's what they've been doing to us blacks for the last 500 years. That's how my ancestors got into Africa. They came in quietly. They pretended like they were our friends. They brought in European missionaries to tell us that our traditional religion was evil and bad and we should take theirs. And then they took hundreds of millions of us away, right? My message is to the African world.
Okay, your message to the African world.
We have to decide that we're going to be free or we're going to die trying to be free. There's no ambiguity. There's no in between. You cannot be neutral on a moving train. We have to make the decision right now that either we're going to die fighting to be free for the next 20 generations or we're going to die trying to get free.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré said it in Mali.
That's it. There's no in between.
Either we unite,
that's it,
or we disappear.
That's it. So our national security should be our first priority. Our national security heads have to recommit. I would suggest that everyone recommit to the most powerful indigenous shrine in every country of the AES. Send them all in front of the shrine, the most powerful righteous shrine. Make them commit in front of the shrines, whether they be Christian or Muslim, because it's our tradition that existed before these foreign religions that came here and colonized and enslaved us. And they understand that the only real justice comes out of our traditional shrine. Make them stand in front of the shrines, in front of the people, and commit themselves to the people.
Okay. Unless you have something else to say, we are nearly at the end of this talk. If you have a final word, in a few words, what will be this final word?
What I've noticed here in the Sahel, I lived in Ghana, I've lived in the Senegambia area, I've lived in Sierra Leone. What I've noticed is that even our people on the continent, we have to re-Africanize.
Okay.
We have to dedicate ourselves back to our ancestral traditions. That is our only salvation.